So what we're going to do today is I've started going over I've sort of going back over the basics. We did do blockchain last week, and I went in some depth into what the blockchain really is and how it actually works in multiple ways. And out of the blockchain comes decentralization or the level of decentralization. It's not always going to be decentralized. Um, it's going to be, it all depends on the code, and the blockchain is really just the foundation. It's so it's quite hard for people to understand crypto because you're looking at something quite abstract. It's basically invisible, if you like. And so, yeah, so anyway, so uh, um, that's one of the reasons why, I've put a fair bit of effort into researching it so that I can make the abstract more concrete or more objective. Because the paradox in all this is that these kind of codes, these kind of protocols, they call them protocols, are actually very, very exact and very fixed and very precise in how they work. So for something that is basically invisible and is out of sight, they perform functions that are very, very real and very impacting on our life. And so this is the side of technology that I feel that we need to understand. So depending on that code, and at the end I'll do a summary and I'll kind of go back over it. But what I want to focus on is what is decentralization? How does it work? What does it mean for us? I want to go over the um, the features of decentralization so that we can at least understand what it can mean for us in a more detailed way and in an overview way. So really, decentralization basically means no single point of control, sometimes referred to as no single point of failure. Or you could say it's no single point of success for a very limited number of people. Uh, it also means, yeah, basically dictatorships come out of centralization, and totalitarianism, dictatorships, communism, these are all aspects of very, very debilitating centralized control. So we can all understand totalitarianism, at least get a concept of it. We can understand communism, but then when you speak of centralization, sort of goes over people's head. So yeah, so basically that's sort of bringing it into the reality of it. And it also means because of that no single point of control, it means we have its opposite, which is community-based decision making and peer-to-peer transacting. Actually, it's more than just peer-to-peer transacting. It's also peer-to-peer everything, peer-to-peer conversing, sharing information. Um, it's basically a sharing economy, and it is so. It's if more and more transactions are done person to person, then there's no need for things like central banks. And there's actually ultimately there would be no need for centralized governments either. So that's obviously a bit further down the track. This is an evolution. It's not an instant panacea. It's not an instant quick fix or anything like that. But the concept of decentralization really revolves around peer-to-peer sharing, movement of money, data, from everything from social media to banking to participating in all the ways that we interact in society, from investing and working, playing, all everything. So decentralization. So what are some of the features of decentralization? It means that everything is basically automated, and it's automated in a way where it's free of human intervention. So that is it's a very powerful tool if it's used in the right way, and it's set up in the right way. It also means basically it's a transfer of power from central authority to the people. We should now be able to do our own decision making. We are the ones that put these people in power, and they're not following the mandate of what's pro humanity. So we just have to simply take our power back and start stepping up, taking responsibility, and the technology can help us do that. And the technology helps us to self-custody our own money. And that's really also a feature of decentralization, is self-custody. And with self-custody comes self-responsibility. And it means we have to step up in the way we work. Instead of trusting third parties, giving our power away to third parties is really, that's the crux of the problems we're in today. We've all given our power away. We've literally ceded our power to other people, and we're allowing them to then basically run the asylum, if you like. The inmates are running the asylum. So it's time now to take our power back. So there is definitely a spiritual aspect to this. There's a spiritual aspect to all life. The technology itself is not going to be the answer. We're the ones who have to implement it. We have to create it. We have to implement it, and we have to use it. So if we don't use it, we lose it. That's basically, we don't use our power, we will lose it, and then we'll get into the problems that we are today, where we've done it en masse. We've been so busy with stuff that we were, fair enough, we were educated in a way that kept us busy from the important stuff. But now we have waking up, we have to now stop that. So when you look at the comparison between decentralized society and a centralized society, when it comes to the technology, I'm speaking purely about specifics here on the technology. A centralized society is where the big tech control, they control the hardware, they own the hardware, they also own the software. It's closed, what they call closed source. It's not open to everyone to adapt and adopt and tweak to their desire. It's basically big tech is, because they're controlling the hardware and the software, they call it proprietary software. In other words, it's theirs. That is what is really, that's how big tech is operating. And because we've got to use their hardware and we've got to use their software, like Microsoft is a really bad example of centralization. with Windows, Microsoft Windows, and their software, it's full of control mechanisms. So these are corporate networks. This is how our world has basically been run for the last, I'd say, the last 80 years since the end of World War II. Everything has been controlled. So therefore we are being controlled because they control the hardware and the software. Now with decentralized technologies coming on, we have what's called protocol networks. And that is basically, by and large, that is what a blockchain is. It's a protocol, which means that it is completely immutable. It is completely, it cannot be changed, it cannot be manipulated, it cannot be altered, cannot be backdated or transactions deleted or anything like that. Protocols run our email system, they run web browsing, they run the internet itself and enable us to talk here. I mean, there's protocols that are operating these technologies that enable us to talk and for computers to connect. And blockchain can do that, but with the advantage of being in a decentralized way, where it redistributes resources away from a single point. And this software protocol is basically a software. It's an algorithm. It's encrypted algorithms, and basically they are in control here. They are self-running. They're automated, like I said, they're self-running. So that means that gives us the ability to get our control back because there's no human intervention. And yeah, humans have to create this software. They have to create the blockchain, but we have things which we call verify. We verify the blockchain. We run tests of the blockchain on groups of people, and we can audit. The actual blockchain can be audited for backdoors. And so those are the platforms we want to look to, where they've been verified, they've been beta tested. I've actually participated in a beta test program, and they use us to iron out the bugs, or, often, technology will come with bugs, whether man-made or not, whether intentional or not, they do come with bugs. But they're also looking for backdoors. They're looking for loopholes in the code that can give people an ability to manipulate and steal our money as well. And it has happened with quite a few. So this is again where the research comes in. This is where we need to research. But look, a platform will not last long term if it's got bugs or if it's got a backdoor, because it won't be long, and I can assure you those developers or the owners will run off with the loot. We're dealing with platforms that have been going, some of them are over 10 years. There's other blockchains that have been going for a long, long time, and they would have been gone long ago. They would not have got past a couple of years before someone would have discovered the flaws or faults that are there. So this is why we look to those projects that have really already proved themselves. And then when you start looking at the partnerships and who they're dealing with and the size of the community, you quickly know good from bad. This is why we're going to teach in our course that's coming out. We're going to teach you how to analyze this so that you don't fall in these traps. So then you got to look at the application level. I mean, you've got the code and we've got decentralization in theory, but how does it work in the real world? Um, well, how decentralization, another important layer of decentralization is what they call nodes, where that blockchain is downloaded into many, many computers, usually around the world, where and that means that when transactions are happening, these nodes, well, they're just basically computers that have the whole blockchain ledger. Often I'll refer to blockchain as a ledger because it is actually also known as a ledger. So when I say ledger, I mean blockchain. So often with these nodes, they'll all transactions are updated almost in real time on these computers. And before the transactions are verified, this is all happening in seconds or minutes. All the computers have to talk to each other first, verify that each transaction that's coming through there's consensus, and then they're released into the blockchain and the transaction goes through. This is why sometimes the transactions sometimes can take 10 minutes. In the case of blockchain, in the case of Bitcoin, it can actually take up to an hour with Bitcoin, or even sometimes I've had transactions take 24 hours. So that is not great as a payment currency or when you want quick verification. So that's why Bitcoin is not going to be a world payment currency. It'll be more of a store of value. But when it comes to global payments, you need this to be happening in seconds. And that's why we have distributed ledger technology, known as DLT. And then the validators are the people that run the nodes. They are the people who own those computers. And they have to do a little bit of work. They have to, if the transaction is coming up for error, they have to, there's the ways that they resolve it. They can talk to all the other computers and weed out the transaction if it's faulty, or confirm it if it's genuine. So this is all happening automated. There's no real human intervention happening into that. The computers will know, and they will tell you if there's something wrong. So once you understand that, then you can kind of start to hopefully grasp that all these layers of protection are there before it actually comes to the real transactions. And then you've got so some applications of decentralization. A big one is going to be physical infrastructure, like our Wi-Fi, as servers. Servers hold computer storage and also operate our websites, and that the servers are very important for that, and they're all centralized. GPS systems like Google Earth, Google Maps, and all of that, modems. All of this is going to be able to be routed through blockchains. People are now mapping the world and putting it on a blockchain. So that means the data, instead of going through a centralized point like Google, it will go through the blockchain, and then no one can get tracked when the actual GPS system or the Wi-Fi or whatever it is going through a decentralized blockchain. So they use the blockchain as its foundation of storage of data and the running of the ledgers. So it is going to completely change the game when it comes to Wi-Fi. All these tracking systems, mapping systems, servers. It will all be a whole different ball game and a whole different world. Another thing that we can do is we can be our own bank. We can literally have like our own banking system. We can do the peer-to-peer transacting, but what we can do also is we can have peer-to-peer lending and peer-to-peer borrowing as well. And this is what banks do, and we can do this amongst ourselves. And so people will earn an income by lending out their crypto to someone else, but it's all secured on the blockchain where they will have to put up collateral. Everyone has to put collateral up in order to do lending and borrowing on the blockchain. And that means if the person can't pay, then they can then get their reimbursed by the crypto that is then used as a security, as a collateral. So that is going to eliminate this crazy debt, a big part of the debt-based system, where everyone is lending and borrowing money they can afford to lend or borrow. And if something happens, then the person who's lent the money won't lose. It means us token holders or crypto holders, we become digital shareholders. This is the case of most crypto are actually assets. The digital assets, they're not, no, there's only a handful that are going to be true global currencies. What I mean by that, like payment currencies where you buy things in a store. There's only going to be a few that actually do the replacement of fiat money. The rest of them are going to be digital assets. And that means by holding the token or the crypto, you're actually holding like a stock, a digital stock, but you're holding it in this particular company that has created that token. And these companies, some of them are very disruptive. And I believe they will be the new businesses of the future. Businesses that we got today, most of them, I believe, will be gone. In 10 years, they will be gone, and we will have a much more inclusive economy where people are dealing with other people and no intermediaries, no central points, no middlemen. And then this means that people can become the venture capitalists. That means basically a VC or venture capitalist is where people put money in at a startup stage, and they bootstrap the company to get them going for seed funding. That is a big part of what's happening in the blockchain today. In fact, that's what we're doing by default when we buy a crypto. We're kind of like, we're giving them our money because we believe in the project, and they give us the tokens in return. And so this is an exchange of energy happening at a person-to-person level. And obviously there's a risk there when you're dealing with these tokens. They're brand new and not all of them are going to survive. So this is why, you've got to look at your risk tolerance as to what stage. I mean, you don't have to get in right at the beginning. You can do your research and come in later. But if it's going to be if it ends up becoming an established token, it just means you might have to pay a higher price, but you're getting more safety because you can see it's being reused. It's actually being used in the real world. And also a feature of decentralized means we have these off-central grid digital wallets. A digital wallet's just like our crypto bank account, basically. And we can have a whole associated banking and other services around those wallets. That type of user interface is coming, and it's going to be greatly simplified as well. It's quite still a bit tricky, but I know they are working on making it as simple as it is today, and it's really getting simplified. So we don't have to worry about the technical glitches in the coming times. They know that if it is too complicated, people will not use it. So what's going on in the building, the development in the background is very, very complex. But for us to use it, it doesn't have to be. Just like the internet today, I mean, when the internet first started, a lot of people couldn't figure it out. It was far too complex for people, especially older people. But now we just take it for granted. And the blockchain is just going to be the next level and the next stage of internet development. That's why they call it the Internet of Value. In other words, the internet is now moving money around, and we've got this decentralized aspect. So it's a lot more valuable in theory for us when you can do that rather than having to use a traditional bank. It also means passive income. Passive income comes from what they call staking. So staking is like you lock up your tokens with the company and you earn a return for that. The same as when you term deposit in a bank account, you're locking up your money for a term and they pay you an interest. Only we're doing it for ourselves here. And staking is governed by smart contracts. They are another algorithm that ensures that we do get paid. And they do other contractual things like lawyers and other things. So that's another aspect that's very important in this space. Because so that means we're not just moving money around peer to peer, we can move assets around. We can sell properties, buy properties, sell and buy any asset. And we don't just have to sell and buy different cryptos. So that's a huge leap. That's what Ethereum, the number 2 token, is what Ethereum is doing. And the beauty is that it is an asset. That's what makes it a digital asset. But it also can be used as a currency as well if people choose to accept it. And with decentralization comes community governance and voting. I believe one day we will have decentralized governments, and voting is obviously a big part of government, but it will be much more secure, much safer. So that's another added advantage that we do not get with, if say we buy stocks or shares, we don't, well, I mean, the big shareholders do get votes, but not the little guy. Whereas now this is a much more level playing field. And it does eliminate a lot of the imbalance that comes in the shareholding. It was a lot more spread out along a flat plane. And it also means much lower fees. And the fees that are generated, that's where a lot of the staking income comes from, is from the fees. So you get to earn a share of the revenue of the fees generated when you are with most projects, when you are staking your tokens. And so that's not going to the middleman. So that they're losing twice there. They're not getting the fees that come from us to the same degree. And then that means that they are their cash flow is significantly reduced, thus reducing their power. The banks skim a tiny little fee off so many things. You imagine when you're talking on a mass level, that adds up to I would say hundreds of billions, but I know it's well in the billions per day of fees generated by by banks and financial institutions, tens of billions of dollars. So that is sucking out a lot of their gravy train, if you like. Other outcomes of decentralization is, with those redirected fees comes a lot of disruption to big banks and the corporate cash flow in general, a lot in lots of areas. If we're doing business amongst ourselves, then they're not getting the business. Simple as that. It's going to disrupt government as well. And that's why I believe that a lot of the chaos is ramping up, because they actually see the writing on the wall now. And they're just trying to vie for their own control to maintain it. It also means we're going to have a lot more freedom of speech, because censorship will be significantly curtailed in a real decentralized system. And that is very important. Without freedom of speech, we will definitely have totalitarianism, and dictatorships will rise out of that. We can have people-based social media. That's becoming very big now. So this is why I believe Facebook are already moving away in many respects. They're now called Meta, and they're going into this space because they know the technology now is coming, and so they're just getting ahead of the curve. And I think that free social media as we know it will be significantly reduced over the next few years. And with it comes all the data harvesting and all of that, scalping of our stuff. We're going to have a lot more privacy in our identification and a lot more transparency in transactions. That's also, there's two sides to that. There's privacy where it's needed for our ID, but more transparency. In other words, everyone can see what everyone else is doing in the transacting side. So you can have both with some of these technologies. And businesses, I believe we're going to see more and more businesses, public trusts will be creating these things called a DAO, Decentralized Autonomous Organization. And these are going to become the future way we're going to do business. It means the business will be automated. They can send and receive money just like we do now. You can use AI as admin assistance, and technology can do a lot of the buying and selling everything, basically. They're getting very advanced now in that level. Another key thing is proof of ownership. What this technology does really well is proves our ownership, secures our ownership and our data and our money. So we're not dealing with third parties. So this is why part of it, but it's also about the ownership record. And so there's no denying that. You can't say, oh no, that's mine. No, everything is verified on chain, on the blockchain, and that's why they call it sometimes the technology of trust or the truth network, because you can't argue with it. That's what the protocols do. Goes back to the protocol. It's going to help create a free market system, a true free market economy. What we have now is not really true. It's nowhere near a free market, because the public-private partnerships that have been done in secret are not creating a free market. It's actually the opposite. There is a form of capitalism, but it's crony capitalism, not free market capitalism. It's completely different. So when governments give priority to the big boys, that's why small businesses are struggling today, because they don't want small business. They don't want multitudes of business. They want a few businesses that are very, very large, a one world government, a one world in every way. It means consolidation of resources into as few hands as possible. So we've got two dynamics going on today. We've got one where it's going that way, and we've got a breakaway group now that are going the decentralized way. And so we're creating a bifurcation of the soul. The whole system is split. And the BRICS nations are certainly assisting that as well. And, with decentralized blockchain, we're going to have much safer artificial intelligence because they can launch the artificial intelligence on a blockchain rather than just a centralized server, if you like Microsoft or Amazon or Google. They're all working on AI in a major way. And so the blockchain is going to help that in that area as well. So the AI and blockchain can merge really well together. So that's really a big crux of it. This is all potentials if it's done right and it's done well, and there's enough of us participating. We need participation to create the economy so that we can trade amongst ourselves. And I believe we are almost there. 600 million people are already in crypto. Just to look at it in a more simplified way, I mean, the old villages of the old days, Native American villages, old villages, I mean, they operate in a very decentralized way. Decentralization is also an example of population moving from the cities to the rural towns and lifestyle blocks, that sort of thing. That's a form of decentralization, moving away from a centralized city is also decentralizing at an urban level. The old, even today, if you go to India, they operate in a very decentralized way today. So it's kind of like there is a simplified version of it without the technology that. But if the technology is done right, we can go back to village-like style living again, and all the data for that community can be stored safely online, and we can literally, the peer-to-peer economy will create a peer-to-peer environment. Yeah, so there's like an infographic to sort of like describe what I'm saying. A centralization is like this, spot in the middle there, and everyone revolves around that. It's like a one-way mirror. We can't see into what they're doing, but they see everything of us. And then you've got sort of like decentralized networks. Like you can imagine each one of these white dots is like a node. These are node holders. And then you have the communities that galvanize around that. And then from out there, the decentralized network revolves out. But ultimately, we're going to like decentralized or distributed networks is where then you have all the transacting, you have us users, the node holders, the protocols all operating in unison in a true economy. A true ecosystem becomes a fully distributed network. And that's what we want. Distribution and data, distribution of ownership, distribution of money, I should say, and resources. That's really what, decentralization leads to the redistribution of everything. So that's kind of like the crux of it. And then I've just, as a kind of summary, I did these quick slides just to sort of go over in summary form what I've just said, but I'm saying it in a more shortened form. So we've got there's different layers to decentralization. So the technological level is layer one, that's the blockchain. Then you've got the networks and the nodes, that's layer two. The networks being the companies behind the actual crypto, and the node holders. So they're like in the level up from the blockchain. And then you've got the applications like the payments, the data security, all of that. A lot of that's happening. Well, it's all happening at the next level up. That's layer 3. We're not doing the payments at a blockchain level. We're doing them on our phones at an app level. And in our case, it's a DApp. They call it DApp. It's a decentralized app. And so if it's truly decentralized at the technological level, it'll be decentralized at the application level, runs right through the stack. And then you could say layer 4, or out of that comes then the bigger humanity effects, like a whole, governments, countries, communities, all operating in a much more decentralized and private way. Yeah, so that's kind of like, just so imagine all these different levels. And at the technological level, the protocols are in control, not humans. The code is key to the project outcome or the outcomes on us. You can have DEX as a decentralized exchange. And that is, if that is inbuilt into the code, then you can have the decentralized exchange of money happening in real time without the addition of any additional coding or anything. That is the ultimate for security. And that's what XRP, that's how XRP operates. So it can exchange anything for anything, fiat, money, for crypto. And any crypto to any crypto, or crypto back to fiat, and the digital fiat as well. There's a type of software called ZK Sync. So ZK Sync is a coding or a protocol that governs the privacy of your ID while giving you transparency in the transactions. So it covers what it needs to cover for our privacy, but allows all the transactions to be seen, but not with your name and address or your details. It's pseudonymous, not anonymous. Pseudonymous means that you appear as this code yourself, and so that makes it secure. But if it's a very large transaction, and knowing that these blockchains are searchable, if you see funny transactions, they can be uncovered. They can find out who they are, but they take a bit of work to do that. So they can't do that with every one of us, but they can do it if someone's trying to do money laundering of major amounts and that sort of thing. And CCIP is another type of protocol code that is governing the decentralized nature of blockchains. It's created by a project called Chainlink, and CCIP means cross-chain interledger protocol or internet protocol, and it's allowing other blockchains to talk to each other and keep the security across the different blockchains. And then we go up to the next level, is the network level. Say it's the nodes. The nodes are securing the transactions. Consensus is primary. No transaction goes through with 90% approval. It has to go through with 100% approval. The validators are rewarded for that. They also often control the staking. They actually manage the staking, and they also have to stake their own tokens to be a validator as well. So that means they've got skin in the game. They're getting rewarded for that job. They do not want to lose that. So that helps to secure the network. That helps them to do their job. And then at this level, this is where we test the beta test in a group, and the audits can all happen from the network level. And then at the application level, which is where we are interacting with it, where when you go to your phone and you open your wallet, or when you're doing a transaction, or when you're receiving money that's happening, this is what we see. That's how we interact. That is where the peer-to-peer transactions are happening. The dApps, we see that the dApp is just like a website that's on the blockchain. It's a decentralized website that is on the blockchain. And sorry, someone's trying to call me. So yeah, so dApp is listed on a blockchain-based web browsing or web server. So that's another layer of security for our websites. And then this is where we interact with the wallets. This is where we have our identification security happens there, and we have to do, know your customer and all that as well, which is the ID verification. Because we have to prove ourselves as a human. We can't have just anybody going in there, because there's far too many bots. There's far too much manipulation happening there. And this is where the payment gateways, this is where it gets a little bit more. This is where some of the decentralized aspects start to get a little bit more insecure, if you like. Because it's if we're buying a crypto, we have to go through a gateway. We have to, and in this case, at the moment, we have to go through the bank. Or if we want to cash our crypto out, at the moment, we have to go back through the bank, or we go to a debit card or something like that. This is where I think the system, the centralized controllers want to try. If they can manage those gates, then I think that's what they're going to try and do. Then they can still see who's making what and try and tax you or stop your transactions. So this is where we've got to look. This is the entry and exit points are the weak link here. And when we exit, if we are selling out of our crypto, we usually sell out to a stable coin as well. And they can be, most of them are centralized. So this is where we have to be careful. This is where we need to watch. This is where people get this is where people see crypto as control, still as controllable. But with like what I was saying here with this code CCIP is endeavoring to make end-to-end decentralization. So in other words, you're going from decentralized banking or decentralized stablecoin into the crypto, and then out into a decentralized payment form. Then no one is able to trap you and grab you and say, what are you doing? Or we want our tax, or whatever it is. So that this is where the battle is really being fought, is at this payment gateway level and the stable coins. We're going to have to really watch that side. These incumbents, the current system controllers, are not going to give up their power easily. And but at least we'll have a good deal of decentralization. Even if they are doing that, we're still going to be very much in the controlling seat, but it's going to be a lot better in its than what it is now. That's for sure. And I know there's a lot of technology being developed to ensure we've got full decentralization. So that's a very important bit to know. And then at the population level, at the whole world, the humanity level, what can come out of this is parallel ecosystems, parallel economies, and I believe that we will have a decentralized parallel economy where we won't have to worry about the gatekeepers. That's going to be the ultimate. That might take another 2 or 3 years before we fully see that, but this is where I'm very excited to watch the development. We are going to have a centralized versus decentralized systems. And we always want to operate as much as we can in the decentralized. Like what we have now is so centralized, so it can't get much worse. And, so it can only get better from here. We've reached that point of centralized control where we've got to now swing back to the other way, to the opposite level, which is decentralized. This is where we have our peer-to-peer economy. So we're not just doing peer-to-peer transactions, say one-to-one, or just a small group. We can have that whole peer-to-peer economy on a mass level. That is going to be impossible to stop. That's what we want is numbers. We have the numbers, they have the money. What will win out in the end is us, because we're more of us than them, and we're the creators of the money. We're the ones who create stuff, make the economy work. So when we start controlling this more and more, we will create these peer-to-peer economies. Like I said, end-to-end decentralization is really the ultimate goal here. And that will take a little bit, there's a bit of an evolution here. It's going to take a little bit of time. But at least what we can do now is we can invest in the tokens that are going to be parts of the new system. We can invest in these new payment tokens and decentralized projects, and we can at least help to protect our wealth and protect the money we've got. And it will be even that alone is going to be far better for us than what we've got now, where everyone's getting smashed, losing their jobs, having their bank accounts cancelled and frozen. There's so much problems that need to be addressed. It will create like a sharing type economy, and I believe also community groups will really be able to flourish out of this. Sports groups, private freedom groups, even towns and cities could create a blockchain and use the blockchain. And that's what's actually happening in some countries around the world. There's certain towns that are all going on the blockchain, and they're doing their transacting there, and they're securing their data, and they're operating in a kind of pilot way. And I believe this is going to translate out to a global level eventually, because we are moving that way. We're moving decentralized. Since COVID, people are starting to wake up, and I believe they'll wake up even more very soon when they realize the financial system is going to implode. When that gets reset or implodes, then you're going to have a whole new level of people that are going to be very attentive to what's happening. And it could be in a very rude way, but the fact is, if they're not waking up now, then they're going to need a sharp jolt to get them to actually act and look at what's happening here. So that's basically, that's a fairly extensive, deeper dive into really decentralization, which is really the crux of what we want to create here. I mean, we don't want more centralized BS, and we do not want centralized blockchains. We don't want centralized money, CBDCs and stable coins. The stable coins can also be decentralized and issued by the incumbents. And so this is where we will have choice, and we just got to be very self-aware and educated in what we're doing here and where we're putting our money and our attention. So thank you for that. I'll stop the recording. Thanks for listening.